Can you guys hear me now? Let me get a one in the chat room if you guys can hear me. Jesus Christ. I'll make sure to edit this before I post it. But yeah, this first live on StreamYard. The first live on StreamYard. And I can see that they have something there on the top blocking out my whiteboard. So I'm gonna have to adjust the camera. How's everybody doing though? How's everybody feeling here? Minnesota already said that it's a sunny day out there in Minnesota, according to Nicer. How's everyone else this beautiful Saturday afternoon? And let us know, if you will, where you guys are calling in from, or shall I say tuning in from, okay? And thank you very much for your patience, okay? Thank you very much for your patience while I worked out the kinks there. That was a bit embarrassing. But let us know where you guys are coming in from. Let's reassess our situation, and then we'll get right into the topic, okay? We'll get right into the topic. Nice and rainy, huh? New York City. Chicago's checking in. Chicago is checking in. All right, all right, all right. Once again, my apologies for the audio situation in the beginning. Okay. But ladies and gentlemen, you guys already saw the topic. The topic says, and it is rather provocative in the way in which it is worded. It says more or less, shut up and show your work, right? It says shut up and show your work, okay? So there's a basic premise here. We're just gonna dive right into it, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna dive right into it. There's a basic premise here, and the premise is this. Oh no, let me go back. This is a hypothesis, okay? This is a hypothesis, and we're going to run through the logical progression of how the hypothesis is set up. And we're going to have thought experiments and anecdotal checks with the chat. It's going to be fairly interactive in order to see if the hypothesis stands up. And the hypothesis is this, that there is something about talking about work that reduces your capacity and your drive to do the work. There is something about talking about work that reduces your capacity and your drive to do the work. That's the basic hypothesis. So let me check on the chat if that actually makes sense. Give me a one in the chat if at least the hypothesis statement makes sense. Let me clear my throat here for a second. Okay, I'm seeing ones in the chat and people are trickling in. And for those of you, again, watch me building the plane as we were flying it. I apologize for that. Okay. And you know what? I'm not even going to edit it. I'm just going to put this live out there like that. And they're going to hear all the tweaking and all the craziness. And it's going to be a video with a few minutes of dead air. So the basic hypothesis, which you and I in the chat room are going to together work through the hypothesis to see if it actually makes sense, because it's still just a hypothesis, okay? Hypothesis statements usually make sense. They sound logical. But until you go through the process of experimentation, which in this case, we're going to be doing thought experiments, checking the logical flow, asking if anecdotal statements which I give make sense, in order to validate and substantiate the hypothesis that there is something about talking about work that makes it such that you reduce your capacity and your drive to actually do the work. So we're going to dive right into it by stating four basic, what should I just say, four basic steps here in terms of the logical progression, at least the way I have broken it down. And the first one is this, okay? People, let me see if that's clear on the camera. Okay. People talk to project and oh, I need an A over here. People talk to project an image. Okay. So one of the things we're going to clarify as we go along here is that we're going to be clarifying exactly what we mean by talking about it that hurts your capacity to do. We're going to talk about what the kind of talk is and what the kind of action is, because people can say all kinds of things, okay? There are many ways in which we communicate verbally, and there are many kinds of actions that we can take. If you can see my writing, please let me get a one in the chat if you guys can see the writing over there. The first statement I'm making is that, again, simple premises in order to, kind of substantiate and validate our hypothesis that talking about stuff reduces our capacity, reduces the hunger, reduces the drive to actually do it. Okay. And the first premise is that people talk to project an image. That's not all we do when we talk, okay? And that's not the only way in which we project an image. We dress to project an image. We do all kinds of things in order to project an image. But basically, the idea here is that we also do talk to project an image, okay? So let's see. You can see it, but it's coming in clear on the camera. It's a little dark. Okay, Rorona from London, England. Shout out to Jessica X. Thank you very much, Jessica X. Okay, thank you very much. Short Cappy. Jostin in the house. Jostin in the house. Jostin in the house. So the very first thing, and maybe I'll switch to black, and maybe black might be clearer. But item number one is people talk to project an image. Okay, there's going to be four steps in this premise to conclusion kind of statement of the hypothesis. And as we go in, we will be doing thought experiments to try to substantiate this hypothesis, either validate or falsify it. Well, actually, try to falsify, I would say, because that's the only thing you can do in scientific analysis is falsify things. You can actually never prove things, you can only falsify them. Now, first idea is people talk in order to project an image. Now, what kinds of things do they talk about? One thing they do talk about is the past, okay? We talk about our past. We all know Al Bundy. Those of you from London may not know, or maybe you do know, right? Love and Marriage was the show. Al Bundy was the guy. He's a shoe salesman. He is kind of a deadbeat. He gets beat down by his wife and his family, his wife Peggy with the big hair, and he's kind of a loser, okay? But he keeps talking about his high school football days, in particular one game, one particular touchdown. Okay, you guys know Al Bundy, right? And for those of you who don't know, please, those in the chat, fill them in, let them know, paint the picture clearly about the Al Bundy character, okay? And we're talking about the fact that people talk to project an image, and one of the ways in which we project that image, one of the things that we tend to talk about is our past. The past could be autobiographical past, as in something that actually happened to you, or something you imagined, okay? Something you imagined that happened to you. Either way, it's autobiographical. Or it could be something about your family history, or you could identify with a particular clan, group, city, country, culture that you identify with, right? The whole "we were kings" thing, for example, is another way in which people talk about a past to project an image. Okay, so far so good. People talk about the past to project an image, right? We can kind of get that. And I'll be a little bit behind in terms of reading the chat, right? I'll be a little bit behind in terms of reading the chat, but I want to get deep into this fairly quickly. People talk to project an image. One of the things that they talk about is the past. I'll just put notes over here. People talk about the past. Okay. Another one is, as you may expect, people talk about the future. Okay. People talk about the future as well. People talk about their plans, their goals. And as social media has become more and more popular, it's become more and more public, shall we say, for people to talk about being gold diggers, right? I'm a gold digger. I have goals. I got plans. I have prospects. I got business ideas, right? People talk to project an image. People project this image through one, talking about their past, either your autobiographical past or talking about a past which has to do with your identity, your group, your family, your clan, your race. Everybody does this. Talking about past glory. Living on past glory, the statement goes, right? Living on past glory. Nice suit, says Verona. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. The tie is a little matchy with the jacket, but I was like, screw it. I'm gonna violate that rule and get the tie that looks almost identical to the jacket because it's Saturday, and as Kevin Samuels will say, it's Suit Saturday, and we're live, and we're doing it live, as the popular meme. We're doing it live. Okay, reliving the glory days, says Jessica X. Reliving the glory days. I heard the name in a while. I haven't heard that name in a while. I'm just assuming you're talking about Al Bundy. What's up, chat? Yes, 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 yes. Looking very sharp. Thank you very much. You guys are an inspiration. Okay, people talk to project an image. Okay, they talk about the past and also they talk about the future. I got plans. I have goals, constantly stating their goals, buying art and putting it up on the wall, talking about how they're going to get it, how they're going to do this, and then they're going to do that. Talking about all their business plans and their spreadsheets and how they're going to get the loan for this and that and the other. But in reality, they never really went to the bank and spoke to anybody about any loans. Okay. Spoke to nobody about no loans, but they talk a good game. Now, people also talk about ideas. Okay. People also talk about ideas. I'm going to be trying different colors as I go along here. People talk about ideas. That's not the best red. People talk about the past, they talk about the future, they talk about ideas, and also they name drop. They name drop, right? They casually name drop, okay? You're in that cocktail party, casually sipping your Manhattan, casually sipping all different kinds of cocktails or gin straight or old fashions, right? Or maybe a little bit of Hendrix on the rocks. And you name drop here and there a little bit. And you talk about ideas, okay? You parrot ideas. Human beings are mimics. What I'm talking about is stuff that we all understand because it applies to all of us. That's me too. I would not know if I did not do it. I would not know if I did not have the inclination to do it. Okay? Now, again, not all talk is about projecting an image, and not and talking is not the only way in which we project an image. I'm projecting an image right now with the cufflinks and the tie clip and the nice jacket. Okay? Okay. People talk to project an image. People talk about their past, reliving their glory days. They talk about the future, right? To try to project themselves in there. And they talk about ideas, right? People parrot ideas. And this one is mainly about being smart. Okay. They talk in other to project a certain persona. I am somebody. Okay. Who's this somebody that I am? I'm going to name drop in order to project this somebody that I am. I'm going to go ahead and talk about ideas which I'm just parroting and mimicking. This is the way in which we learn. As a matter of fact, we need to do a certain amount of mimicking and parroting, okay? A little bit of copying. When you hear something, you have to repeat it a few times, and sometimes you need to repeat to someone else. Okay, but there is a certain kind of repeating which is about projecting an image. Now, let me know if, because what we're doing here is we're trying to flesh out the idea. Let me go back for the purposes of cognitive clarity and for the purposes of those coming in new into the chat. We have a hypothesis which we're trying to test out. The hypothesis is this: the more you talk about something, the more you diminish your ability to actually do the work and get the results. You actually diminish your ability, your drive, your hunger to do the work. That's the hypothesis. Seems logically clear. Hypotheses usually are, but they still remain to be tested. They still, you have to go through the rigor of it, right? So we're going to state 4 points. The first point is where we're at in order to clarify the kind of talk we're talking about, okay? I'm not talking about every time you name drop and every time you talk about your past or your future or ideas. I'm not saying that's about projecting an image, but let me get a one in the chat if you know the difference between just talking about an idea with your friend versus talking about an idea in order to project an image about yourself. Okay, let me get a one in the chat if you know the difference between just talking about an idea versus talking about an idea with the purpose of projecting an image about yourself. Okay, or name dropping because you're projecting an image, or talking about the past because you're projecting an image, or talking about the future because you're projecting an image. Okay, seeing lots of ones in the chat. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. And don't forget to hit that like button, ladies and gentlemen, as you come in. It is much appreciated. Let's skip over now, or move over, I should say, to item number 2. I like this red. I like this particular red here. Item number 2 is that this image, okay, this image creates a, or shall I say, an external / social reality. Okay, the idea is this: it's pretty simple. You have these ideas in your head. You may want to be somebody in your head. You may be, in fact, somebody, or you're trying to be somebody, but still, it's just in your head. It's in your consciousness congress, all the different voices in your head. They're usually about, at least I can recognize three dudes that are in my head, right? Three dudes that I've kind of identified, and I even have an image for them. Okay, we have hundreds of people in our head. These are just voices in the head. Okay, it's not necessarily what you are, any more so than you are any kind of emotion. You have many different emotions, sometimes at the same time. Also, you have many different heads at the same time. They start to get a persona. This is what archetypes are about, in the sense, insofar as these different personas are shared. But hey. I'm digressing now. We're going into another video about certain other things. We're psychologizing now. But it's in your head. But when you tell that person in the cocktail party, now it's out there. Now you've projected that image out there. Now it has a social and external reality. Also, you remember that. So, as part of this game you play in your head about the person you are and the image you're trying to project, not only is just going to be a voice about the glory days, a voice about your future plans, or the name dropping and the idea parroting at the party, it's going to be the reaction of the people who heard you. That's going to be stored in your memory as well. And that's going to be part of the package. Now there's an external reality and external validation to it. Does that make sense, people? I'm going to be asking for quite a bit of interaction so that it can be clear that we are following each other. As I said in my last live stream, I am not into preaching, I'm into sharing. And this is a live substantiation of an idea, a live substantiation of a hypothesis. Okay. So whenever I make a statement, I want to make sure that people are following. As I said, I'm not just standing here showing you a beautiful cake. I want to be able to slice the cake, hand it over to you so that you guys can taste it. That's what sharing versus just preaching is about. So let me know if what I just said makes sense, that when you go ahead and you put, okay. I see. Neil Stewart says, Ike, you need a dial in. You know what? I may later on, Neil, since you mentioned that, I'm gonna ask after we go through the hypothesis and stuff. I mean, after we go through the logical progression and stuff, I may open up the chat or open up the stream. Okay. What do you guys think about opening up the stream? What do you guys think about opening up the stream? I mean, we know what Neil Stewart thinks. Okay. So after we do this part, I may open up the stream. Now, Nicer said yes regarding the fact that image creates an external and a social reality. Okay. And I'm going to quickly, because this one is not so much of thinking or clarification that needs to go on. But the third one is that this external reality of the image, right, gives satisfaction more so than just when it was a idle thought in your head. Okay, the external slash social, okay, external slash social reality gives satisfaction. It gives satisfaction. Remember, the hypothesis is this: there's something about talking about work, the work, and getting the results. There's something about talking about it that diminishes your ability to actually be about it and do it. And there are four steps that I've broken it down into in order to elucidate this, and we'll talk about it some more. People talk in order to project an image. This image, okay, creates an external and social reality, gets a life of its own, okay, and it gets stored in your memory. You remember people thinking that you were the ish because you talked a big game. Now that gets stored in your memory as part of the big game package. Okay, it's not just only in your head. You swore you were there at that cocktail party. People thought you were the ish. So now it's an external reality. This then gives you a certain amount of satisfaction, right? It gives you a certain amount of satisfaction, a certain amount of satisfaction. Ike, are you married? No, I'm engaged though. Now, you can almost see where the next step is. The next logical progression vis-a-vis the hypothesis that we have. Okay? The next logical progression is this. All right? This satisfaction diminishes your hunger. All right? My bad. It diminishes your hunger. It diminishes your drive. It diminishes whatever it is that needs to be satisfied. Okay? These are the four. This is me just stating, okay? This is me just stating the hypothesis in a way that clarifies what we mean by the talk, the kind of image we're projecting, okay? And that then the reason why I have this hypothesis to begin with is because there's a logical progression that states that that image creates an external reality, a social reality. That social reality gives you satisfaction, satisfaction of your ego, and that ego satisfaction diminishes the hunger by definition. There is a hunger that needs to be satisfied. You need to do the work in order to be the person. But if you go ahead and you talk to project the image then creates a external reality and external reality, a social reality. That social reality gives you satisfaction. That satisfaction diminishes the hunger. So far, does that make sense? Okay, so far, does that make sense? And then let me look into the chat room here a little bit to see if I'm missing anything of consequence, anything of substance. Okay, shout out to Solo TV 84. Shout out to Solo TV 84. Thank you for stopping by. I know you got a live stream in less than an hour, I believe. Okay, Nicer says one. There is a logical progression to this. That's all that we have. Okay, said so far. People talk to project an image. They talk about the past. They talk about the future. They talk about, they name drop. They talk about we was Kangs. They talk about all kinds of things in order to project an image. This image has an external reality all its own now. Now it's out there, out of your head. It's in the social sphere, and you store it in your memory as well. And you start to really, 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 really believe in this. This external reality starts to give you a certain amount of satisfaction. That satisfaction, by definition, diminishes the hunger. It's what satisfaction does. Satisfaction diminishes the hunger, right? And with this diminished hunger, I don't need to state this part, it's obvious. We've already stated the hypothesis sufficiently with these 4 points, which is that this satisfaction now diminishes your drive to actually go out there and do things, to actually go out there and make stuff happen. Okay? So now, there's a reason why I put men in the title. Okay? There's a reason why I said men in the title as opposed to just everyone. All right? It's like sticking with the same task without any challenges, and the person burns out. Mm-hmm. Yes, 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 yes. Now, why am I talking about men? Generally speaking, and I'm going to talk rather stereotypically, archetypically, the image of the strong silent type, or the fact that a man's world is a world of work and results. And the fact that as men in general, and as I said, we're trying to substantiate the hypothesis, and we're giving anecdotal evidence. We'll talk about cultural archetypes and stereotypes. We'll talk about things that are intuitive in order to flesh out the reality of this hypothesis statement. Okay? Now, I say men because generally speaking, man's world is a world of action. A woman takes care of the social world. That's why we need women, by the way, gentlemen. Okay? It is not your strong suit to be branding yourself. It is not your strong suit to be doing the image thing, making sure that the mortar which keeps the social fabric together is intact. That is not our strong suit. And as a matter of fact, as men, we give each other minuses for doing that. As men, the more we like to talk and keep up on the this and the that, and being a chatty catty is not something that garners you any kind of status with men, real men, dare I say, right? So now I'm talking about an archetype and a stereotype. And that's why I put men in there in the title. And I'm saying that also it's not our strong suit. Now I'm appealing to our intuitions to say, if you're a man, like, yeah, me and my buddies and stuff like that, or when I compare with the women, right? It is not really our strong suit to sit down and have tea parties where we catch up on everything and we make sure everybody feels okay and everything is egalitarian and everything is nicely needed and everybody is getting along just fine. Okay? That is not our world. It's a very important and necessary part of civilization, though. right? It's a given. Okay. That part is what keeps a certain white picket fence up and clean water and medicine and children running around and everybody is having a good time. That's the part that keeps that coherent. However, as men, it is not our strong suit. Okay? We are in the world of action. That's why I put men in the title. It is therefore more important for men to understand this construct here that you're talking to project an image. The image creates an external reality. That external reality gives you satisfaction, and then the satisfaction diminishes your hunger to actually do the work. Now, you can still do the work, okay? But trust me, the idea here is you want to use the hunger. What will be a practical offshoot of all of this? What will be a practical offshoot of all of this is that you want to maximize your hunger. You want to maximize your hunger. You want to maximize your hunger. You want to use the hunger. It is a fuel. You want to almost be in a position of desperation as a man because you need to take action. You cannot rest on your laurels, as it says, right? And laurels are accolades. You cannot rest on your accolades. You cannot live the Al Bundy life of, hey, I made it. I made it in high school. I did this one touchdown. You cannot do that. It's literally quenching the hunger in order to take the action now. So before we move any further, what I would like to say is okay, a practical thing to do, therefore. I'm going to appeal to our emotions and thought experimentation as we continue to try to falsify this hypothesis. Hypothesis being that when you talk about it, you diminish your ability to be about it. So, next time you have the urge to say something in order to project an image, next time you have the urge to name drop or talk about your great business ideas or some silly pyramid scheme, multi level marketing thing you're trying to do, or some silly future talk or some silly talk about your past, or parroting the latest idea you heard on the news, which you have no real knowledge about. The idea is this: I'm appealing to your intuition. Okay. So I'm saying that we know when we want to do this, right? Okay. No one needs to tell you, tap you on your shoulder. Oh, right now you're about to talk to project an image. You're not just talking in order to get advice. Okay. The idea is when you're going to talk about these ideas, when you're going to talk about these future plans, you should be talking about it to somebody that can give you advice or they're a professional in the space. You're talking to your accountant, okay? You're talking to your lawyer about the best legal entity to form. Should I go with an LLC? Should I go with an S Corp in order to make this idea happen? Okay. The moment you feel the urge to talk about it, just to project an image, stop it. Stop it. Don't satisfy that hunger. Maximize the hunger. Okay? Give me a one in the chat if you guys know what I'm talking about here. Give me a one in the chat if you guys have ever done that. Generally, I know it's true. We all do it, right? But give me a one in the chat if you know the difference between talking about something in order to get advice from somebody, okay, in order to get professional help, right? Or in order to kind of actually do it, okay? You are at the bank and you're trying to get that loan or whatever, versus just talking about it because you're trying to project an image of the guy with ideas or the guy who's a big shot because of the past or has future plans and all these great business ideas. Okay. I see ones in the chat. So we know this. We know that this is something that we do. So the next time, practical offshoot of this particular situation here is that the next time you catch yourself doing that, just stop. Stop. There's an urge pushing you to do that. Okay. And that urge wants to be satisfied. bottle it, cap it, pressurize it. Okay, pressurize it. It's good rocket fuel. It's going to then be converted tomorrow into you actually picking up the phone, calling the Small Business Administration and asking real questions, making real appointments, getting real advice about the business that you're trying to start up, getting real advice about how to get government contracts, getting real advice about whether or not to use LLCs versus your name to get a loan for your real estate venture. Sitting there in some party at some bar talking about LLC versus this and oh, this and that and the loan and the blah, blah, blah. Once you get that urge, stop it. Keep it, bottle it. It's fuel. Do not get satisfied by the external reality that you created with this image because you're talking in order to project an image. All right. There's definitely a difference, says Justin. And yes, we know the difference. So, again, as I said, this is a hypothesis that we're trying to validate. I'm going to be appealing to intuition, cultural stereotypes, and images. I'm going to be appealing to logic, right, in order to substantiate it. In other words, it wasn't some kind of psychometric test done to say, hey, and then published in the Journal of Nature, saying that when you talk about these things in this particular manner, which we're describing, it's going to lead to your diminished capacity to do it. No, it's not a scientific study. It's an idea I have. I'm going to state it this way. We're going to try to falsify it. We're going to throw darts at it. Okay, now, what I would like to do is talk about the inverse. Okay, talk about the inverse of this. And the inverse of this is something that we've heard. We've heard many times people say that one that people say is, for example, like those who cannot do, teach, right? Or don't talk about it, be about it, right? But I'm trying to go for the reverse here. And I'm gonna appeal to anecdotes and imagination. Do we in fact notice that the people who do stuff talk less about that stuff? Okay. As a matter of fact, we may even notice this with one person. Okay. This same person. Okay. They have this particular biography, right? Initially, they talked about it, but the more and more they started to do it, okay, the less and less they talked about it. Have we noticed that? Okay. Have you noticed that in yourself? You notice that in your uncle? Okay. People talk also about, people with wealth don't talk about it. Okay. People who run businesses don't talk about running businesses that much. Don't talk about how to start a business. They're just constantly starting businesses. Is that something that we have noticed? Is this something that is valid? Now we're talking about the reverse here, and we're trying to state an observation that is it truly the case? Because definitely there's sayings that suggest that it is the case that people who do don't talk. Okay. Now, as I will continue to say, does that make sense to you guys? Do you guys have that experience? Let me get a one in the chat if you have indeed noticed, or if you have at least heard and wondered about the fact whether it is true that those who do don't talk. And we're going to try to substantiate that as well. There is another hypothesis that I have, which is the reverse of this particular one. We're going to try to substantiate that as well. Okay. So I'm seeing ones from Rona and Isa saying that yes, it is indeed the case that people who do talk less. Okay. And I wonder if you guys have ever wondered about that. And I wondered about that, and I have another hypothesis about that. Okay. And that hypothesis is fairly straightforward. Okay. It's fairly straightforward. Now, the idea is the idea is most things that you need to do, again, this is about doing the work. Most things are like riding a bicycle. Most things are like riding a bicycle. A bicycle. I always say bicycle so that I remember how to spell it. But we've gone through this here, trying to throw that darts at the hypothesis. But we're looking now at the reverse, and we look at an observation, which is that, why is it that the people who do tend to talk less? What's going on with that? What's going on with that? It's in a way cognitive dissonance loop. What's going on with that? Here's what I mean by that. Most things are tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is knowledge such as muscle memory. It is unconscious knowledge. It is like riding a bicycle. That's the most ubiquitous example that is used. The bicycle analogy is a great one. What do I mean by that now? How do we kind of use that analogy within this context that we're trying to talk about? Okay. Basically, what I'm saying is this. Okay. Most things are like riding a bicycle. Most things are like riding a bicycle. Perhaps if you've never ridden a bicycle before, we pick this particular person, let's say now, let's just use this one individual who is always talking about riding bicycles. He talks about gyroscopic balance. He talks about wind resistance. He says, when you look left, you turn left. When you look right, you tend to go right. He has a whole instructions manual about riding a bicycle. But guess what? The minute he actually jumps on the bicycle and starts actually learning how to ride it, he's going to realize that he was talking a whole bunch of crap. He's going to realize that he actually can't teach anyone how to ride a bicycle. And I say, most things are like that. Okay? We cannot help things being like that because indeed, the most efficient way of doing things is through tacit knowledge. That's why in one of the very first video I made, the introductory video was talking about the only way to get things done and to learn is to get in the arena, fail fast, fail frequently, reiterate, and repeat. Just like learning how to ride a bicycle, the only way to do it is get on it and keep falling until you stop falling. Okay? You could read books all day or you could talk about it all day, but until you get on the bicycle and start riding it, falling until you stop falling, you're never going to get it done. And then when actually you stop falling and now you're riding the bicycle, somebody comes to you and says, hey, how do you ride a bicycle? Are you really going to have anything to say? No, you're going to shut up. You're not really going to have much to say. This is my hypothesis as to why the people who do talk less. It is not because, oh, they're too busy doing. No, people can walk and chew gum at the same time. People can do and talk. Okay? That's not why. The reason why is because, shout out to CMT training. The reason why is because when you actually start doing things, you're going to realize that there's a lot of tacit knowledge. There is an analogy called the elephant and the rider. The elephant is your entire subconscious being, both from a genetic standpoint and as a result of automated experiences, so on and so forth, right? That's the elephant. And then there's the rider. The rider represents a very thin layer of consciousness, let's say, okay? The thin layer of consciousness, the one that is trying to put things together in this live stream right now as I'm talking to you, right? But it's not in control of the language. It's not even in control of the sentence structure. It's not in control of the grammar that I'm using to speak with you. All that grammar, sentence structure, even I don't know the end of the sentence before it doesn't know the end of the sentence before the sentence, gets there, right? All that is the elephant. The elephant is the big part. It is literally the elephant in the room, pun intended. The rider can direct the elephant to go a certain direction, but it is the elephant that does the learning. Let me get a one in the chat if you get that elephant and rider analogy, whereby the elephant is what stores your tacit knowledge. The elephant knows how to ride the bicycle, okay? The rider on the elephant just needs to direct the elephant, okay, we're going to go to the store. It is the elephant that does the work. It is the elephant that actually has the knowledge. The rider has no clue how to ride a bicycle. Same thing. The rider has no clue how to start a business. The rider has no clue how to sell to people. No, it's the elephant that knows it. It's your intuitive knowledge, your unconscious knowledge, your tacit knowledge, your muscle memory. That's what really has the know how. That's why when you shut up your mouth and start doing things, you're going to realize, oh, I don't really have much to say about anything. I can't tell you how to ride a bicycle. I can't tell you how to start a business. I can't tell you how to run a business. Okay? I cannot tell you how to live a certain lifestyle. You just have to take the elephant in that direction and let the elephant learn it. That's the most you can really tell people. Okay? How do you stay fit and be disciplined? I can talk till I'm blue in the face. But I really cannot tell you how, because it's the elephant that does it. It's the tacit knowledge that does it. It's the muscle memory that does it. It's the intuitive knowledge that does it. The most you can do is direct the elephant in the direction, right? Hey, elephant, go into discipline land and learn how to be disciplined. And it goes in there, it falls, it tumbles, it does all kinds of crazy things, just like learning how to ride a bicycle. And then, boom, now elephant knows discipline and workout. Elephant knows how to sustain a business. Elephant knows how to get new clients. But the rider, the conscious part of you, doesn't really know much. Okay, doesn't really know much. Its job, generally speaking, is to direct the elephant to new areas to accumulate. It says, you know what? I think next we need to go into the forest of cryptocurrencies, the forest of investing, the forest of real estate. And then the elephant goes in there, the elephant does its thing, falls around, does all kinds of crap, and then it comes out, and now the elephant knows about investing. Okay, the rider directs the elephant on the things it needs to go and automate and learn and make unconscious. That's how you operate as a system. There, maybe there's some computer geeks in the chat that have some hardware, software, CPU versus memory, random access memory versus read-only memory analogies that they can use. Okay, but the riding of the bicycle analogy plus the rider and the elephant analogy are very powerful ones that are ubiquitous and can be easily understood. So again, for the benefit of those just perhaps coming in, and for the benefit of cognitive clarity and cleanliness here, we want to go ahead and restate a couple of things. What are we restating? We're restating that this is all about a hypothesis. I say, hey men, shut up and show your work. Shut up and do the work. And I say that there is something about talking that diminishes your capacity to do the work. And we stated that, and we kind of clarified words and so on and so forth by saying that people talk in order to project an image, that image creates an external and social reality, and that social reality gives us satisfaction because, by the way, we're social animals. The reason why, generally speaking, you want to do the work anyways is because of a certain amount of social validation. I don't care who you are. Okay, I'm a super introvert. I'm a super self-starter, self-driven kind of person, but even I am not going to deny that there's a social reality to the reasons why we do things. So stop fooling yourself. Okay? So when you create this external image and social reality, it's going to give you satisfaction. It is going to give you satisfaction, but you don't want to do that because that satisfaction will diminish your hunger. It diminishes your hunger, diminishes your drive, and now you're not actually going to do the work. That was one flow. Another flow is how come the people who do the work less and less speak about it? Okay? It is because the more you do the work, the more you're going to realize it's like riding a bicycle, and you cannot tell somebody how to ride a bicycle. What you can do, perhaps, what you can do is tell them, here's a good bicycle frame for what you're trying to achieve. Okay? Where's a good bicycle frame for what you're trying to achieve? Here's a good business structure that helps with your LLC. In other words, it's all this external stuff: the bicycle itself, the helmet, the best seat pads or the best kind of bicycle pants or the kinds of shoes to use. Okay. These are things like tax accountants and uh, legal structure for your corporation and market analysis and so on and so forth. Those don't actually teach you anything about how to run and how to start the business. The business is like riding a bicycle. This should be good news. This should not be bad news. This should be good news because you realize, oh, I don't have to know everything. I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I don't have to do all this kind of analysis. I don't have to write a business plan. Okay. There's a saying that no business plan fails on paper. There is no business plan that fails on paper. Okay. And hold on here. Let me see here. So it says invite, copy the clipboard. Let me get a one in the chat again. I'm going to ask the question again. If you guys would like me to open up the stream, and I'm going to try to see if I can make the audio work in terms of me being able to listen and talk on the microphone. If you say one, you're putting yourself out there. uh, okay, so I can hear it on that, and the microphone is good on this, and so Nicer says one. All right, Nicer says one. Now, Neil Stewart says one. Nicer's laughing because she knows she just put herself out there. Now, there is something also that has to do with women. We said that a woman's forte is the social sphere. It's not a man's strong suit. A chatty catty man is not respected by men or wanted by women. Okay. Now I'm referring to cultural norms, certain archetypes, or maybe stereotypes at this point. Okay. This is not some kind of logical thing I'm saying, but you know what I'm saying, right? Now, I'm going to drop the link here. And I don't know if that's how that works, but I just dropped the link and we're going to get into it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's have a conversation about, because the third aspect of things here has to do with, as men, why we should shut up, okay, and show our work vis-a-vis women, okay? Why we should shut up and show our work with relation to women. Now, the idea is this: the obvious and trivial first item is women want to see the work, okay? So I'm going to drop the link again. We drop the link again. Women want to see the work. They want to see the results. Okay, that's the first and obvious one. That's why you need to do all this stuff so that you get the work done. This part here, talking about most things being like a bicycle, is another way of buttressing our idea, buttressing the psychodynamics of our hypothesis. Then we're going to talk about the fact that definitely it is a woman's forte to take care of that aspect of your life, the branding, the imaging, the air of respectability bestowed upon you, and so on and so forth. That's a woman's forte. You go out there and do the rough and tumble work. You go out there and be rough at the edges. You go out there and be a dragon and a dragon slayer. Okay. Let her take care of you being socially acceptable. Okay. So that's one thing I said. Second thing is women want to see the work. That's why you need to do the work. The other thing, though, okay, is A woman doesn't want to have to tell you certain things, or a woman does not want to peek behind the curtain. Okay? Okay? She doesn't want to peek behind the curtain of you talking about stuff. She'd rather, most rather, see you do the stuff. As a matter of fact, maybe not even see you do the stuff. Rather just see the results, right? Where are the results? Show me. Show me. Show me. Okay? So I've dropped the link and no camming up, right? No, you don't have to cam up. You do not have to cam up. But I've opened up the link. Now, here's the deal. If you have to have certain kinds of conversations with your woman vis-a-vis the work and the results, it ruins the fantasy for her. It ruins everything. You're opening up the hood. You're showing how the sausage is made. This messes everything up. You see, we as men, generally speaking, are about, okay, we as men, generally speaking, are about the world of sausage making. We're about the sausage. Funny. But the woman is about the image. She wants to see the image of the results of the work. Okay. And someone came in and then they dropped out. But I think that, hey, Nicer, can you say something?
Yes, hello?
Hey, Nicer, nice to hear from you. I can hear you. I'm assuming that the people in the stream can hear you as well. Put a one if you can hear Nicer. This is my first time streaming on StreamYard and trying to make sure that things are working properly. Okay. So so what do you have to say on the topic of the hypothesis of, talking about it diminishes your capacity to be about it, and that when you actually start doing things, you realize that it is like riding a bicycle, therefore you keep your mouth shut because you really can't tell somebody how to ride a bicycle, right? Or what I said about, what I've said about women, so on and so forth. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Okay, well, um, this is more. Well, first I want to touch on anyone that seen Kevin Samuels live last night, featuring the Asian lady Jenny. I don't remember her name, but how she was going into, how she is going to submit to her future husband, but she didn't really go into how she was going to accomplish that. And my question is, for someone, for a woman who has ambitions beyond being a wife and mother first, how can we go about doing that and still stay in our feminine roles?
Hmm. The first thing that comes to mind when you say something like that is I I get the kind of like, okay, who has the most expertise in this area, right? So the first thing I would say is there are women out there, right, whom perhaps are doing what you said, right? Or would you, um, I'm sorry, perhaps you, um, but basically, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Well, that's number one. Does that make sense? That first of all, I would say, okay, who would have the most expertise, and it would be the person perhaps with the most anecdotal evidence or experience doing that, right? So, is there someone perhaps that is doing that kind of a thing? She's a family woman, but she also is pursuing certain things that you know, either
Well,
you know
I
personally or that you get or an example out there.
I personally don't know anyone, but people who come to mind would be like uh nobody's coming to mind. It's just like I don't have any frame of reference that I could use um to to get an answer to the question I have. Can a
Mhm.
woman be a wife and have a career and be able to balance both?
Yeah. So I mentioned the first thing that came to mind. Now we don't have any real examples. The second thing that comes to mind is just practical things that can be done, right? So you want it to be the kind of work that you can do from anywhere, right? So I think Kevin Samuels gives examples of like things for which you can get certifications, like you maybe you want to be a CPA, therefore that's great because you can do tax accounting from your house. Or if it's a creative endeavor, right, where maybe you want to be a poet or a songwriter, a musician, those things don't require you to get on a freeway every morning, get into the rough and tumble, deal with a bunch of dudes in cubicles, and then come back. So in other words, there is a psychological aspect that you mentioned which has to do with quote unquote staying in your feminine, right? So if you can stay in your house and just do taxes, stay in your house and write songs, stay in your house and pursue certain things, you have the psychological drive to do it. That's not what takes you away from quote unquote your feminine. It is getting into a man's world, generally speaking, and competing with a bunch of dudes. That's what tends to take you away from your feminine, right? But or so far, is that making sense?
Yes, it's making sense. And to add to that, it's like I'm a high school graduate myself, so I've never had a career, but I have worked odd jobs where in manufacturing where majority of the people I worked with were men. So I know how to conduct myself in a man space, and I carry that over in YouTube because there are quite a few channels that I follow in the manosphere.
Mm.
But I would just I would you make a good point about the competitive part where I just feel that I have this gift for writing is which is what I want to do, and I just feel like I would be doing a disservice to myself and all the divine intervention that put me in a place where I'm able to express myself creatively if I didn't go after this gift or I don't want to compete with anybody. I just want to share this gift with the world. That's what I really want to do.
Very good. Now, the competition aspect is necessary, but as I said in my last live stream, the person you want to compete with is your past self. You want to compete with the person whom is not taking this writing into action, right? So you look at that person and you say, hey, what has this person not done? Okay. So the person usually has to go out there and make some kind of external action, right? And in the case of writing, you have to go contact some kind of publishing and registration kind of a company, right? You go out there, and there's several ones that are out there, and you can Google them. The one I personally use for my songwriting is CD Baby. They handle the publishing and the copywriting. So, for example, when the first time Kevin Samuels played my song on the channel and he got hit for copyright infringement and stuff, is because I have the song copyright. So when you do that kind of a thing, which is like a first step to take, right? And then you start asking yourself things like, well, how do I monetize this? Okay. You go ahead, and this is where like sales skills come in. And an easy way to start marketing yourself is with the people around you. Say, hey, what do you guys think about this? Would you use this song in your ensemble? Let's say you know musicians. Or would you put this poem as part of your kids' book that I know that you write and you read in the library? That kind of a thing. It could be friends and family, right? But now you're establishing a shingle. Okay. You're putting something out there that way. Again, this is all with the view to competing against your prior self who has not done these things yet. Okay. So you want to go out there, establish something externally, like pay the fee to get a persona out there as a songwriter, so that your stuff can be copywritten. Upload those things, and as you start to do those things, especially when you pay money, no matter how little it is, it starts to draw your attention. and you're going to want to do more and more, and it's going to be more and more official. And then you're going to call one person, call another person, call a third person. And guess what? If you call the people in the right spaces, even though they're just friends, family, and acquaintances, at some point, if what you're doing is impactful and it makes sense and it's good, 2 months, 6 months, maybe 9 months down the line, they're going to call you and say, "Hey, Nicer, I got this opportunity. They need someone who's copywritten, okay, and has this, that, and the other, and is part of these organizations, right, to do this." And guess what? By that time, you're already going to have your copyright and your publishing taken care of. You're already going to be part of whatever association that you need to be part of, right? And then, boom, it's gonna take off. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense, and I thank you. You've given me a lot of valuable information that I can actually do something with, as opposed to um, so-called women feminist experts who if I went to them and asked the same question, I would most likely just get a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo um, that I can't do anything with.
Yeah, and regarding
So
that
thank you.
aspect of yeah, you are welcome. And I'll say one last thing, and then Neil, did you mute yourself, Neil, or
Yes, I muted myself. Thanks for having me there, Ike. I'm going to put myself back on mute.
okay, good, because you're next right after I go ahead and say this. We're gonna go with Neil, and then we're gonna go with Jostin. Shout out to Jostin. Now, just one thing, just to put a capstone at this point, at least so far with what we said. Like, engaged, for example, right? And for example, the perhaps feminist thing will say that because they always go to the extremes, like, oh, you want to keep your woman down and all this kind of crap. It's like, well, no, not really. The reason why people like to care for puppy dogs and lavish all this good things on puppy dogs is because they're cute and they're puppy dogs. Okay, people don't do the same things with big pit bulls. All right. So the idea of femininity, and I'm creating an analogy, albeit perhaps a gross one, is you want to be a cute puppy dog. People don't kick puppy dogs, right? And if you want to be protected and people go the extra mile for you and people, go out there and protest and picket fence, all that kind of stuff, they'll do that for a puppy dog. They will not do it for a pit bull. They're like, you're a pit bull, whatever. I don't care. I got shit to do. Right. So that's just one aspect of it. The other thing is, look, um, my fiance, for example, wants to do certain things in the medical industry. And there are certain ideas that she has, but she knows, okay, well, first of all, she's got to that don't she doesn't have to run at a at a certain pace because there's a certain window for kids and this and that and the other, okay, and you can take it easy, you don't have to worry about the money. I'll take care of this, that, and the other. But at some point you're going to start this business where you can have mobile midwifery, for example, where people who want to give birth in a bathtub, that kind of a thing, or whatever it is it might be. Imagine a bus rolls up to your house, okay, and you get wheeled into it, and it can be for all kinds of medical services, okay, and then you get taken care of in this almost mobile clinic, that kind of thing. But the idea is there are many kinds of ideas like that of things that you can do, okay. But just a thought there. So, Mr. Neil, go ahead and unmute yourself. Welcome. What you got for us on the topic, or what would you like to share?
Hey, Ike, first off, thanks for having me on your platform here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, so the specific input that I have has to do with the idea of showing your work. I think that we need to tease that apart a little bit more, just because there's some of us who have grown up to basically not be opulent, not to, show too much. So there has to be a balance between what we mean by showing your work. I've always, in a sense, been a little bit insular as far as, not wanting to show outwardly, okay, driving like a fancy car, for example, or, the house that I live in, because in a weird way, sometimes, especially maybe with women who have a certain degree of hypergamy about them, that can be seen as something that they could take advantage of. So I think that needs to be teased apart. And where does that balance exist? I'll put myself back on mute for you to address that.
Good. That's a very good point. The one thing I would first of all hop on, and perhaps is the only thing, and then I'll ask you to address it that way. It can be a back and forth and we can clarify, is that the word show means many things. Okay. Show means, in this particular regard, at least for me, doesn't mean display, doesn't mean go out of your way and show, because that again goes back to this projecting of the image, right? In order to get some kind of social gratification. Show means, and the reason show is used is because it's hard to use any other one word. It becomes this rambled sentences that I'm struggling to grasp right now. But what I'm saying is that it will show on you if you have done the work. Does that make sense? Like, in other words, let the work be seen on you. The results will be clear, even if you don't have. In other words, let me put it this way: Is there? What are you? What do you do, Neil?
I work as a financial analyst.
You work as a financial analyst. How much experience do you have in that?
Over 10 years.
Over 10 years. Okay, good. Now, can you tell as a financial analyst, you're in this cocktail party, you don't know this guy. He shows up, right? And he says he's also a financial analyst. Okay. Can you tell in about a few sentences how good he is, whether he has done work at certain level or not? Can you tell?
If it's just a few sentences, it might take me a little bit more time to delve deeper because it's not going to be enough, information to be able to tell his level of experience.
Hmm. But do you see where I'm going with that?
Yes, you kind of sometimes have to go a little deeper behind the scenes. Is that kind of the point you're making?
The point I'm making is, if someone has done the work, whether you go deeper or it's only just it's clear on the surface. And there's certain areas where it's more clear than others, right? Maybe in financial, being a financial analyst, you can BS. Okay, there's certain things that are easier to bullshit than others. But what I'm saying is, it will be clear if someone has done the work. I can tell you right now that if you're a real business person versus a fake business person, it becomes very clear a few sentences into the conversation. And when I say a few sentences, maybe I'm being a
Yeah,
few back and forth, right?
I think you threw me up when you said a few sentences, right? Because you need more than a few sentences. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying here. So
Hmm.
I'll give you a little bit more specific example. So it is the case that I work hard and I have achieved relative success, but I'm very careful in terms of how I display it, right? So if I'll give you an example. Say I went to a cocktail party. Um, let's use Steve Jobs for example. He goes to a cocktail party. He's dressed in jeans. He's dressed in a turtleneck, right?
Hmm.
Meanwhile, maybe you or I were in a suit. However, outwardly though, you would look at Steve Jobs as, yeah, this guy looks like a bum, right?
Hmm.
Jeans, worn out shoes, turtleneck, but he might be a billionaire. Versus me in a suit, his work would be in a sense more, but he's not showing it outwardly.
Exactly. However, that's why I said it's not about displaying it, but trust me,
Yeah.
when people sit down and start talking, or it'll be clear who the
Okay.
billionaire is. It will be clear who
Yeah.
has done the work. It will be clear who has contracts with China, right?
Gotcha.
And who has no idea how to even go about doing that, right? So
Right.
that's
But
kind
let
of
me throw
really
you a
what I.
curveball. Let me throw you a curveball here. When it comes to women, us as men, we can discern that. But when in terms of women, they don't have necessarily the ability to discern that at a business level and the language that you use when it comes to that, right? So the question is, when it comes to women, I believe it's a different show of work than it is between men. Your thoughts?
Whew. That definitely is a curveball. Okay. Now, I see two aspects of what you're saying. There's one is, okay, well, there's almost an aspect that has to do with, well, how do women read it, since they may not be able to tell, right? And then the other aspect is, well, how do you actually go about demonstrating it? Those two aspects within the
Yeah,
territory of what you're saying.
exactly, right. Because of the hypergamous nature of women. We know that they're going to be turned on by the, oh, he's wearing a nice watch, he's dressed in a nice suit, and they would look at that and recognize that on you or I versus a Steve Jobs who's in a jeans, worn out shoes, and a turtleneck looking a little bit bummy, right? You
Okay.
see what I'm saying? You see how? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking that there's two ways to sure work. One to women and possibly another to men in conversation that we can discern that. If you are relatively intelligent, you can discern that. Versus with women, I mean, unless they're in a different class of of knowledge, but I don't think they normally would be, just because the way men think versus the way women think. I think there's different ways to show worth to men versus women. And I don't want
Yes.
to tie your lineup, so I'll just kind of put myself on mute, and you can expound further on that.
Good. I'll expand further a little bit, and then I'll bring Jostin on here. So, women have way better intuition, okay, first and foremost, than we generally do. So they may be able to read the BS a little bit more. And then the other one is the social aspect, okay? Women will look, right? Now, this may be flawed, but generally speaking, here's how it works. Men set up the hierarchy, right? Of whom is the man that I will go into the battlefield and die with, or die for, or be proud to die on the side of. Who is the man that really is about the business? And this man will rise to the top of the social hierarchy of men. Women pick this up instinctually, right? They can tell who's the cream of the crop by watching how other men either A, speak of them or act around them, or they can have some general information if this person is someone that has a network and some kind of visibility, okay, they'll be able to see that. And then they can just go ahead and pick from the top of the hierarchy. Generally speaking, men set up the hierarchy. They know the guy that is really about his stuff, right? And then women will pick up on that and pick from the top of the hierarchy. So that's what I want to say about that aspect. I don't know, Neil, did you have one thing to say about that, or
Yeah.
does that
So
make sense?
what one final thought? Yeah, I absolutely agree with how you broke that apart, and it absolutely makes sense. And I agree with you on women are able to discern by looking at the hierarchy and how men relate to men. They will kind of draw inference from that. So I agree with you. Thanks.
Good, good, good. Jostin in the house. Jostin in the house. Um,
Mr. Ike, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good on this sunny Saturday
Sunny,
afternoon.
yeah, yeah. You in Southern California, or you don't want to say where you
I
are?
am. I'm in Southern California.
Okay, good. So what do you got for us today?
Well, to tell you the truth, that was a lot to take in, just the way you explain things. And I learned the word tacit today. So that's something. Um, but as far as, showing your work and, talk about it, I totally agree. Because as I, reflect on prior ventures in my life, I feel like I was so quick to start something and then immediately start telling people about it,
Mm,
which in turn, looking back to it, I'm even questioning myself now, like, why did I feel the need to even, you know, display that without even having the substantial, benefits that came afterwards. So I totally agree at that point. And also, um, I think it's good to keep things to yourself, because it'll save you from embarrassment if you fail because you're doing it on yourself. And it also keeps that personal venture to yourself as well.
mm, I see. So why do you think that you were in the past quick to say it?
I think there's a the need to feel like you have to fit in or that you have to be accomplished already and that you already have to have this some sort of like work to show to like you said how to fit in and how to like appeal to a certain group. But as I get older, I feel no need to appeal to any group. I feel like I want to appeal to myself first and foremost. And then once I feel, actually not even when I feel, once the work is done, that's when I should actually talk about it.
Good. And ironically, as we said, when the work is done, you're going to find out that you really can't say much, right? Because
Right,
a
right.
lot of it was like riding a bicycle, and you really cannot say much. Now, do you have anything to add, perhaps on the woman aspect or anything else?
Woman aspect. You know, I agree with Neil what he was saying. Like, what did he say that women instinctually know about, you know, how to discern if you're you know somebody of business or somebody who's not really, you know, about it. I think there's a lot of truth to that, and um, I believe that it's a good thing that they're able to like quickly be like, okay, he's not really, you know, about his stuff, or he like this guy's about it. You know, I feel like that benefits them in a way, because even sometimes with men, um, maybe it's just in my cases, but sometimes as soon as you know, you can talk to men for a little bit, but some men are really good at faking the funk. I want to say, like, they have people who kind of hype them up, and then you see the people hyping them up, and you're like, okay, well, maybe he is up there. But then the more you dig, or the more you get to know the person, it's just like, oh, wait a minute, like he's a good guy. Like, yeah, he's just a friendly guy, but as far as like that work, like it's just not there, you know. So I'm
Good
just
point.
learning that now as a young man, you know, how to like really look into someone and be like, okay, this guy is the real deal.
Good, good, good. So basically, there is the more you actually have, because you can be gifted intuitively, right? Where you can actually just sense BS, right? I'm very intuitively inept in that way. Like, maybe it's the super introvert nature, or just not really being socially adept, right? But
Mm.
the more you do stuff, right, the more you're going to be able to tell who has done the same things, right? So whether it be like, so I do music, I do selling, I'm an engineer, and blah, 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 blah. The more I do these things, the more you're going to be able to tell very, very quickly, okay, how far someone has gone in any of these realms. So if you're young, either you're super gifted and that's how you can tell, or you'll get fooled and by people who are faking the funk, or or should I say rather, when you learn one particular thing, you're then going to be able to use that as a test, generally speaking. And as I say this, the amnesia effect comes to mind. Do you know what that is? The Gauman amnesia
No,
effect?
I'm not familiar.
So it is tangentially related, but not very directly related. And that is this, okay? There's this guy called Gauman, right? He's a European physicist, so I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, but you can Google it. And whenever he read something on the newspaper that had to do with physics, he would go, "Oh my God, they're wrong. They're wrong," right? But then he will turn the page over, and maybe it's about geopolitics in China, and he'll believe it. People tend to do that crap. Okay, we all do that. You see the fallacy that's going on there. In other words, like for example, and I think this Joe Rogan had this incident too. Like he read about the fight between Mayweather and I forget the UFC guy, the Mayweather versus the UFC guy. That one fight, Um,
Mhm.
and he read about it in a newspaper, and it was so wrong. They were off. They were just making stuff up. They were like, "Oh, the guy was covered in blood," and there was no blood. All that kind of stuff. And Rogan was like, "Well, this is absolutely wrong," and whatever, made a whole thing about it. Connor, yes, Conor McGregor, yes, exactly, exactly.
Oh, right,
Mayweather
right,
versus
yeah.
Mayweather versus Conor McGregor, and he read in the newspaper how they just made stuff up. Okay, but you will probably hear Joe Rogan the next day citing something from the New York Times. It's called the Gauman amnesia effect. It just means you forget. In other words, when you have a certain amount of expertise, you'll be able to see in the newspaper, and the more expertise in the various domains that you have, you'll be able to just notice how much crap is out there in the media. As I said, it's not very directly related; it's only tangentially related, having to do with faking the funk and BS, right? You'll be able to see in your particular realm that That's not really how that industry works. That's not really how engineering works. This is not really how the protocol works. You read it in the newspaper, but then you turn to the next page and they tell you something else, and then you just believe. So I just wanted to share that, Jostin. Thank you very much. Or did you have anything else to add?
Oh no, that's all I had. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So we're gonna go through now since no one else is hopping in on here, and we have already gone. It's been an hour and a half. It's been 2 hours. Yeah, it's been about an hour and a half already. So I would like to close this out and by restating certain hypotheses. Now, the hypothesis that we started with and we tried to substantiate, or we at least tried to falsify, was that there was something about talking about the work that diminishes your capacity, diminishes your drive to actually go out there and do the work. And then we said, let's break it down in this way. Let's state the hypothesis in this way, talk about anecdotal experience and use our intuition to try to validate it. Let's talk about the fact that people talk in order to project an image. They talk about their past, they talk about their future, they talk about ideas, they talk about plans, so on and so forth, with the idea to project an image. Not just because you want to talk about it to get advice, not because you're talking about it because you're talking to a professional, okay? Then that this image creates a social reality, an external reality. It's not just something in your head anymore. You actually told somebody else, the person reflected it back to you, and now you start to really believe it. It's an external reality and it gets lodged in your memory that way. And the way memory works is, it's going to mold it into something else in the future. We don't have photographic memory unless you have photographic memory. And generally speaking, memory of an emotional and social sort tends not to be photographic. It tends to serve an end. Okay, it tends to serve the ends of the ego. So later on, you mold your memory in order to serve whatever particular end, right? So later on, you might then even turn the whole thing around where this person was calling you the man, and you were not the one that told him that you were the man. That's why he's saying that. So it creates this external reality. The external reality gives you a certain amount of satisfaction because we are mammals after all. That satisfaction diminishes your hunger. Okay, the hunger, the drive in order to get the work done. So that's the basic structure of the hypothesis. Okay. And then we talked about certain ways in which this is reflected in culture, archetype, so on and so forth. That the strong, silent male type, okay, the guy who is strong, he has evidence of the work, he does the work, but he is quiet. The fact that generally speaking, being chatty is not something that takes you up high in the male hierarchy. And then I mentioned tangentially, and perhaps this subject matter for a future video, that this is not our strong suit as men, and that's why we should not really be doing it. And that is really why you need a woman in your life to handle your branding, your image, and all that kind of stuff. Let them be the mortar that brings the bricks together and that makes you a respectable person, because doing the work gives you a hard edge. It's rough and tumble world out there. Okay, it's the Wild West, right? Therefore, you need the woman to come in and put a nice veneer around that, make it palatable, packageable, and present it out into the world. Okay. Then we mentioned the fact that there is something, the converse, the reverse, the inverse of what we just said, which is that we do make the observation that when people actually do work, they tend, okay, they tend to not talk about it. Why is that? A first trivial response will be, well, maybe it's because they're too busy doing the work, but that's not true. People can talk, people can walk and chew gum, as they said. People can talk about the work while doing the work. That's not the problem, okay? The point is, most things are like riding a bicycle, or using the elephant and the rider analogy. The elephant is the tacit knowledge, the muscle memory, the unconscious. That's where most of your knowledge really resides. Okay? It's automated. You cannot really tell somebody about it. Okay? You can suggest a bicycle type, you can suggest a helmet type, the right kinds of gloves, and you can go on and on and on and on and on and on about it, but you will never be able to tell them how to ride a bicycle. You'll never be able to really tell them about most other things. This is my kind of like my extreme claim is saying, hey, even if it's business, even if it's sales, even if it's a lifestyle kind of thing, even if it's about mastery of subjective consciousness, which is something that I tend to talk about in my videos, how to treat your body like a system. Even when I do that, I say you're going to have to do it in order for the gauges to become clear. In order for the dashboard to become clear for you, I cannot do it for you. Whether it be a lifestyle of exercise, so on and so forth, you can talk and talk and talk, but when you start doing, you realize how much ineffectual your talking has been, okay? Because you cannot write a manual on how to ride a bicycle, and most things are tacit knowledge, muscle memory, and in the unconscious with regards to that. And then that one more thing about women, not only is it the case that women want to pick from the top of the hierarchy, at, the hierarchy being the hierarchy of quote unquote work, quote unquote being about it, which the men select those who are about the work and who are being about it, and women come and pick. That's one aspect. But the other aspect is you don't want to reveal what's behind the curtains. And this perhaps goes to Neil's point. It's not directly related to Neil's point, but the whole point about how do women select, or how do you show the work, and so on and so forth. You want to limit how the cards that you show to a woman. Now, it's not a question of being deceptive, okay? It's a question of a certain air of mystique that they need. They need an image. They don't want to see how the sausage is made. Okay, trust me. I think, and again, I could be wrong, right? As I said, I haven't done some kind of psychometric study, spanning 50 years, and now I'm giving you the results. But I'm saying that the whole thing of, oh man, open up and share and say all these things, right? Say all this stuff uh, to your woman is BS. Even if she tells you to open up about it, there's a certain amount of sausage making you want to keep to yourself. You never want to expose that. Okay. Certain amount of that work that you're doing, you don't want to say how you're doing it, how you're getting it done, your struggles or your plans or this or that. No, you want to just do it. Okay. Go talk to the guys about that. Go talk to the guys in the factory or on the sales floor or in the bank or whatever about that stuff, and then get it done and then show the results. You don't want to open the curtains too much. Okay. It ruins the whole fantasy for them. You want to more so be about it. And the other thing is this: the more that this is the reverse now, not you telling her, but her now telling you certain things, the more she tells you, the less faith she has in you. If she, look, Lois Lane doesn't want to tell Superman how to fly or how to be Superman. She doesn't want to tell you how to be the man that she admires, right? She wants you to be the man, rise to the top of the hierarchy, and then she just comes and picks, right? Now, granted, you make the proposal and she accepts, that kind of a thing, right? Because men are the gatekeepers to relationships. She can't just come in like that, right? But the idea is she's selecting, she's choosing, she's accepting because you have risen to the top of the hierarchy as a result of doing the work, as a result of other men judging you, and so on and so forth. She doesn't want to tell you, oh, you should do this and you should do that, because very clearly and very intuitively, when you tell someone, how can you therefore know that they are the real deal when the S hits the fan? You want somebody who is going to instinctively do the right thing. A man that's going to be a man, going to protect and provide. You don't want to be the man whom you told, do this, do this, do this, do this. Because how about when the S hits the fan? And we know, not to be pejorative, this is not in any way pejorative, that women are the ones who tend to worry more about the unknown and the things that might happen and so on and so forth. So she's thinking, well, how about when this happens? How can I trust this guy whom I have to tell? If I got to tell you, and that's why there's that conflict of she wants me to be a mind reader. Okay. Yeah, no, not really. She doesn't want you to be a mind reader. She wants you to be a man. Okay. She wants you to be a man. So now that's complex. In other words, not everything that being a man is about is what she wants or what she thinks she wants in the moment, right? So I'm not just saying, oh, you be a man and therefore it's going to be what she's actually desiring. at the moment. Okay. But overall, in the overall picture, if you are actually about doing the work, keeping your cards to yourself, discussing those things with the guys, right? And getting the work done so that she can see the results and know, yes, he's a dragon slayer. I saw him slaying those dragons. I saw him over there and I saw how those other guys acted around him. Okay. They vouch for him. They know he is the guy, right? Then she's going to be at ease. She's going to be at peace that I have a man who's out there slaying dragons. Therefore, I don't have to be a dragon in the house, constantly S testing, as we say over here, right? Constantly shit testing you to see if you really are that guy, right? So that was a little aside that has to do with this, but it's tangentially related to our topic, is because it's about talking versus doing. Okay. They want you to do, they don't want you to talk, and they definitely don't want to tell you. They don't want to tell you. Now, they don't do this consciously. Okay. Okay. And Kwasi said, agreed. Learning women is a skill, Ike. Yeah, perhaps we'll do a stream on this. Wait at the finish line. Exactly. Women wait at the finish line. Yes, they wait for you to do it. They don't want to know how you ran the race, fellas. All that BS about, oh, women really want men to open up. No, shut up. They don't want to know how you ran the race. And here's what then tends to happen. Okay, and you guys have got me. You guys have gotten me. You got me going on this. I'm gonna blame you guys. Yes, I'm the one really getting myself going, but I'll blame you guys. Here's what then tends to happen. Okay, you go ahead and you try to do the open up thing. It comes back and smacks you in the face. It comes back and smacks you in the face. You realize, oh, they don't really care how you ran the race. Okay, and guess what? Now what happens? You got red pill rage or whatever. You're like, oh, they're callous, heartless, blah, blah, blah people. Well, no, you were just not very smart. Okay. I'm not talking about your IQ. Okay. I'm talking about the fact that you had not learned yet. Okay. You needed that stuff smack thrown in your face, and you needed to get to the point where you realize you were expecting a fish to ride a bicycle, since we're talking about bicycles the whole time. You were expecting a fish to ride a bicycle, and then you start cussing the fish because it doesn't ride bicycles. Women don't care about your freaking race. They don't care about the freaking pyramid and how you're climbing it. They don't care about how the sausage is made. Okay. The sooner you know that, the better. And then you could just chill, like, hey, yeah, she can be in her femininity and her feminine energy and all that stuff. She's waiting at the finish line. She doesn't want to hear about how I ran the race. She doesn't want to hear about how I ran the race, fellas. So you talking about all your plans and your struggles and your this and your that is a mistake. You need to be about it, okay? She takes her cues, generally speaking, from the social realm, okay? The kinds of things that you can expose her to in the social realm, the kind of people you can expose her to, the kind of places you can take her, right? Oh, I've never been to the governor's ball before until I started dating Ike or whatever. Never been in a situation where people treated me like this, or I saw how he was treated here, there, and the other, so on and so forth. Don't want to hear about how many hours it takes and like, no, leave your race alone. Shut up about it, okay? And it'll definitely also help you to be better, because we talked about the fact that even with your woman, okay, with whom is just another aspect of social validation, okay, if you go ahead and project that image so that you can get the little bit of externality and then validation, that even diminishes your drive to actually be about it. So shut up with the society at large, unless you're talking to a professional about how to get things done. Also shut up with your woman about how you're doing it and all the work it takes, right? Shut up. She doesn't give a crap about that, and it's not because she is a horrible person. Okay, it's not because she's a horrible person. You don't want her to care about that. That's not her forte. Okay, that's not her thing. Her thing is somewhere else where you have really no business and really have not much of not much strength, not much capacity, and that has to do with the social sphere, the sphere of community and communion and communication, right? All having to do with communing, right? That's their thing. The sausage making, the rat race, the climbing of the pyramid, being the top of the hierarchy, that's your thing. They don't want to hear about that crap. Okay. If you get one thing, in addition to the fact that you should keep your mouth shut in general because you want to store up that energy, that anytime you have the urge to tell somebody about your past, your future, your plans, your ideas, shut up if you're doing it for social validation. You're not talking to a CPA or talking to your lawyer about it. You're just talking to someone at a party so that you can be somebody. Shut up. It'll that hunger you were trying to feed, that dissatisfaction will form into this pressurized ball, which will then push you forward. Okay, it'll push you to call ASCAP and register yourself, and then start writing those songs rather than telling everybody at the party how you're going to be a songwriter. Right? Shut up about it. You don't know nothing about songwriting as far as you're concerned and as far as they're concerned. Take that energy and use it tomorrow to call the relevant authorities and register yourself and get yourself copyrighted. Call the right people to get your little poems published. Start with the local paper, the local bulletin that's distributed in your local community to the schools or something. Get your poems in there. Do. And then at some point, you're going to get to the party and you're not going to need to tell anybody that you're a writer because they're going to be like, oh, aren't you that writer? Right? Besides that, the other thing is shut up with your women. Okay. And they don't want to tell you. And it's a good reason why they don't want to tell you. It's not this complaining about, oh, she wants me to be a mind reader. No, she really wants you to just be a man, because if she has to tell you, then you don't know. Now, this tends to get abused. As I said, it's a very subtle thing, and it makes sense on a big level. But you need to understand that I'm not talking about catering to her desires. That's not what I'm talking about here. Okay, I'm saying. Can you guys hear me now? Okay. Well, the wireless microphone battery is getting low. That's why the sound dropped off. So this is giving me the perfect signal that it's time to end the stream. Okay, it's time to end the stream. Once again, thank you very much. Can you guys hear me? All right. Perhaps you guys can, or perhaps you guys cannot. This is dead, and I think I just yes, you guys say yes. I just switched to the other audio, And I'm gonna go ahead and speaking of how the sausage is made, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna plug this in so that it charges. Okay, and I gotta remember to charge both the receiver and the mic to full capacity before I start next time. But it's a great microphone, by the way. Microphone system is called the Rode Wireless Go. It's great. It's wireless. You can clip it on. So you guys saw. And I will go ahead now and leave the stream. We are out of here, ladies and gentlemen. We are out.